use their medical system. And I know they love to bash Canada, comparing it to ours, but the fact is it works a lot better, and nobody goes without medical care in Canada. They may not have an MRI in every hospital, but do they really need that? So in a sense, their goals are more modest, but it just works better,
Sure. I remember
it's not for profit. It's not a profitable enterprise. The government pays for it. People pay for it through their taxes.
And it gets done. Yes.
And it gets done. Mm-hmm.
I know reading some of Daniel Pinchbeck's experiences, he mentions his ayahuasca experience being like 10 years of psychotherapy in one night, and where it actually did him some good, where he could see into himself. And I think, well, as soon as the pharmaceuticals can figure out how to patent that and put it into a pill, we'll get it. But until then, probably not.
No, they won't. They won't. I mean, they won't for several reasons, But, well, for one thing, ayahuasca, it's in the public domain. It has been for years. But the fact is, the sad fact is, there's no money to be made in psychedelics as pharmaceuticals. They want things you take 4 times a day for the rest of your life, not something you take once or twice, in a lifetime or once a year or whatever. I mean, there's no profit there. This is one reason why, it's so hard to get these things approved. Like if you're familiar with MAPS and Rick Doblin's struggle to get MDMA approved, there's no doubt that it's effective for post-traumatic stress syndrome and that sort of thing. But is it profitable? Probably not. It's probably not going to be profitable. So, otherwise the pharmaceutical companies would be all over it.
Yeah, that's the business model.
Yeah, that's the business model.
Yes.
And they are corporations, after all. I mean, they're in the business of making money, so they're upfront about that, and that's okay. But does it bring these substances that are really healing substances to the public? I don't think so.
No, it doesn't. But okay, thank you, Dennis. I'll pass you on to the next person.
Okay.
Dennis, I totally agree with you about medicine, and I think our whole culture has been propagandized toward eat this, drink this, think this way, develop these symptoms, and then you go and get this medicine. And, medicine itself has to change, but it's really just a part of it. And I'm not sure if you're aware, I just wanted to tell you about this, colchicine, which is from crocuses, has been around since, the invention of fire.
Right.
There are all kinds of cheap generic versions of it. The drug of choice for gout. It's been on the market forever. Mm-hmm. FDA just recently outlawed all of the generic forms because they've been around before the FDA, and so the FDA never had it go through their official approval process. And now, if you have gout, you have to get a patented brand version of it, which is now the only form of colchicine available, and it's, of course, very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But, I would love to see, everything reworked, but it's something like, there's a famous graffiti artist, Banksy, who, in his film, it's called Exit Through the Gift Shop. Everything has to be funneled through the corporations to make profit. And until I think everybody changes their whole mindset and starts to think for themselves, things are just not going to change.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. That is because it's the profit model, and the also the pharmaceutical model, this idea, the magic bullet idea, we want highly purified compounds that target specific receptors that do, exactly this one thing. And that's completely on the opposite side of the spectrum from natural medicines, herbal medicines, which usually have multiple effects, multiple active ingredients that interact with each other and synergize each other. And it's just a completely different approach to healing. Natural medicines, plant medicines, are complex, biochemically complex mixtures of chemicals. Well, guess what? We are biochemically complex mixtures of chemicals too. And that's why natural medicines, I think, are more compatible with our systems. We're not used to a magic bullet approach. Now, sometimes that's good. Sometimes you want a magic bullet, and if you have, H1N1, or if you have some pathogen, you want an antibiotic that's going to knock that out. That's fine. But in a lot of cases, natural medicines, they may not work as dramatically as the pharmaceuticals, but they work more effectively over time. And, one of the things that's puzzled me as I watch this healthcare debate and kind of the way the FDA is evolving, we're all concerned with the cost of prescription drugs, right? I mean, that's one of the big factors that contributes to healthcare costs. Why isn't there more conversation about these herbal medicines, which the FDA, they try to marginalize this. Instead, they should be funding research, because natural medicines are quite often, almost always, a lot cheaper than pharmaceuticals, almost always a lot safer than pharmaceuticals, and yeah, sometimes they need better scientific investigation to prove that they are effective. But why doesn't the FDA encourage this rather than discouraging their use? Because they can play a big role in holding costs down.
No, you're absolutely right. There's no way to make a profit off something you can grow in your window. So
right.
That's why.
But there is a whole dietary supplement industry which is making money off these things. But the FDA does everything they can. Instead of encouraging that industry, they actually try to throw as many roadblocks in their way as they can, and they're sort of, it's like it's regarded as the bastard stepchild of medicine. And those are, we know those aren't any good. And, it's not taken seriously, but it could be taken seriously. There's actually quite a body of scientific literature on a lot of these things, including clinical studies. It's always puzzled me why this is not part of the conversation when we're talking about the costs of drugs. We talk about importing drugs from Canada or other countries. I mean, that's one option, but why not develop natural medicines and put it on a better scientific basis? And then that's an option that's open to people. Yeah?
No, I agree. Yeah. Totally.
Okay.
I had another question. Because of the ubiquitous nature of tryptamine receptors and tryptamine-like substances out there, do you have any theories as to if there's any connection between that and the data drop in the Alta reports, which I'm not sure if you're familiar about those, about the Alta reports?
No. Tell me about that.
Oh, boy,
that's the acronym, though. Tell me about this.
Okay. That is the WebBots project. The reports that they put out, it's pretty complicated story. I don't know if I would do justice to it, but they basically take information from spiders that go crawling out on the web and see into the future, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And it corresponds a little bit with the Timewave 0. And they're seeing basically a lot of stuff coming up. One of them is a period of time when there isn't a lot of theory or question is, but could you possibly foresee or think of something like a virus or a mutant pollen or something that could theoretically be a DMT-like substance that would go, just everywhere?
That would spread through the population like a virus?
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see something like that. I think that you could probably engineer something like that using genetic engineering. I mean, it's possible to think of a virus that would perhaps introduce into your genome the molecules for synthesizing DMT in your brain. I mean, we already have those. We already synthesize DMT in our brain, but it's not our primary neurotransmitter. I'm not sure you'd want that, though. It's kind of makes it hard to do anything if you're on DMT all the time. Simple things like driving, like opening a can of tuna fish, getting up in the morning. These are not things that are front and center when you're on DMT.
Oh, exactly.
So I'm not sure this would be a good thing. I'm not sure. Part of what makes the psychedelic experience valuable is that it's, by definition, it's limited. It's a place you step into, experience for a while, you get a different perspective, then you come back to baseline. I wouldn't call it reality, but it's where you come back to the baseline serotonin hallucination, if you want to put it that way, and you take the lessons that you learned in that altered state and you try and apply them in the everyday world. If we were always loaded on some psychedelics, we would be a lot like schizophrenics, wouldn't we? I mean, we'd be sort of...
Oh, sure. But it would definitely...
Not necessarily highly functional all the time.
Yeah, it would definitely be a drop-off into novelty, though, is
right.
What I'm thinking.
It would be a drop-off into novelty, yes. I don't know. I mean, if it's interesting what Steve Jobs was involved with, and this whole idea of the coming, singularity, which is one possible manifestation of the 2012 Timewave zero scenario, that we would essentially create a virtual world in which we could spend most of our time. And that sort of seems to be something that we're evolving into. Now Apple's got the cloud, right? Everything's going to happen in the cloud. Well, I don't think the cloud is the virtual world that we're talking about, but some kind of version of that that's like 10,000 times more enhanced than the Apple cloud might 50, 100 years, or maybe even sooner, become a place where we spend a good deal of our time. I don't know. I mean, that's one possibility, is that we're all going to migrate into some kind of a cybernetic, cyberspace, as William Gibson called it. Whether we want to be there all the time, I'm not sure.
I have another question. Have either you or Terrance spoken word leading to intent of meaning being beheld in a three-dimensional space, which is a term I read in one of your interviews? In other words, manifesting something in the material world through spoken or thought words.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, that was something that came up during the experiment at La Chorrera, and this idea that, that was one of the interesting aspects of DMT, especially, and these tryptamines, is